Welcome to my podcast. Today, I will be previewing and making predictions on the Atlantic Division in the NHL. First place will be the Tampa Bay Lightning. The Tampa Bay Lightning are by far the best team in the Atlantic Division this year. Not only do they have depth at all positions, they have high-end talent at all positions as well. As remarkable as it sounds, the Tampa Bay Lightning have not traded or lost any major players yet. But the offseason is not over yet, so they can still move some players because they still need to re-sign Nikita Kucherov. Yzerman locked up Steven Stamkos, Victor Hedman, and Alex Killorn, as well as Andrei Vasilevskiy this offseason, proving that he is the best GM in hockey right now. It is safe to say that heading into this season, the Tampa Bay Lightning are going to be one of the favorites to win it all. Key arrivals, none, because they had to focus on re-signing their own free agents. Departures, John Marchessault and Matt Carle. The strengths of the Tampa Bay Lightning are depth at all positions, all-world talent at all positions, and great coach and great GM. The weaknesses for the Lightning are none, except that next year is the expansion draft and the team may get considerably weaker. Key players for the Lightning are Steven Stamkos, Nikita Kucherov, Ben Bishop, Victor Hedman, Tyler Johnson, Alex Killorn, Tyler Johnson, Andrei Palat, Andrei Vasilevskiy, and the X factor is Jonathan Drouin. Drouin is the X factor for the Lightning because if he plays like he did in the playoffs and becomes that top-end talent and top six player that he is capable of playing like, the Lightning are going to be really tough to beat. The second place team that I would predict that finishes second in the Atlantic would be the Florida Panthers. The Florida Panthers are a team that really is on the up and up. They have a core of exciting young talent that is locked up for the long term, and they just addressed the biggest weakness on their team, which was defense. They added Keith Yandle and Jason Demers in free agency, and they also got Mark Psysk in the Kulikov trade. Mike Matheson, the top Panthers defensive prospect, is expected to play a top forward role in the team this year. So the Panthers defense is looking pretty good this year. The Panthers added much depth to their team, and they also added James Reimer as their backup to Luongo. This allows Luongo to remain fresh headed into the playoffs. The Florida Panthers are the Atlantic Division's most improved team. Key arrivals, Keith Yandle, Jason Demers, James Reimer, Jared McCann, Mark Psysk, Colton Sceviour, and John Marchessault. The key departures are Yuri Hudler, Teddy Purcell, Dmitry Kulikov, Erik, Gudbranson, and Al Montoya. The strengths for the Panthers are depth at all positions, they have skilled forwards, and they have a solid top forward defense. Weaknesses, they lack a pure goal scorer in their lineup. Key players for the Panthers are Aleksander Barkov, Aaron Ekblad, Roberto Luongo, Keith Yandle, Jonathan Huberdeau, Vincent Trocheck, Nick Bukestad, and Riley Smith. The X factor is Jaromir Jagr. The ageless wonder Jaromir Jagr looks to continue his assault on the record books. But is this the year that he finally slows down, or will he continue to defy age? Only time will tell. Third place in the Atlantic Division would be the Montreal Canadiens. Montreal Canadiens have Carey Price back and healthy. That alone is going to make them a playoff team and possibly a contender as well. The hockey world was shocked when the Montreal Canadiens dealt PK Subban to the Nashville Predators for Shea Weber. This is a good move in the short term for the Canadiens, as Weber is a better leader and shutdown defenseman at this point in his career than Subban. Besides adding Shea Weber, the Canadiens also traded for Andrew Shaw and then promptly re-signed him to a long-term extension. Shaw will be a big factor in the playoffs for the Habs. In free agency, the Canadiens added Aleksander Radulov. He was the best pure scorer of all the free agents this year. The additions of Weber, Shaw, and Radulov makes the Canadiens a better team. And adding Carey Price back into the mix makes the Montreal Canadiens a threat in the Eastern Conference. Key arrivals: Shea Weber, Alex Radulov, and Andrew Shaw. Key departures: PK Subban and Lars Eller. The strengths of the Canadiens: they have an elite goaltender in Carey Price. They have pure scorers on the first and second lines with Pacioretty and Alex Radulov. The weaknesses for the Canadiens is they're missing another top defenseman to pair alongside Shea Weber. They're missing a second-line left winger, and their center depth is pretty weak. Key players for the Canadiens are Carey Price, Shea Weber, Max Pacioretty, Alex Galchenyuk, Alex Radulov, Brendan Gallagher, and Thomas Plekanec. The X factor for the Canadiens is Andrei Markov. Andrei Markov has been healthy recently, but he has always been plagued by injuries in the playoffs. If Andrei Markov can remain healthy and continue being productive like he has previous seasons, the Canadiens will be tough to beat. Fourth place in the Atlantic Division will be the Detroit Red Wings. The Detroit Red Wings are in a whole lot of trouble right now. They overpaid many players that are not worth what they are making. Detroit's biggest problem is that they have a core of aging players and too much money locked up on over-the-hill players. In free agency, the Red Wings re-signed their own free agent in Darren Helm, but this will hurt them in the long run because Darren Helm is not a difference maker and he's getting paid like one. Thomas Vanek was brought in to provide depth scoring, and Frans Nielsen was brought in as a Pavel Datsyuk replacement. The Detroit Red Wings may still make the playoffs because their division is kind of weak. Key arrivals: Frans Nielsen, Thomas Vanek, as well as those are all the free agents that were brought in. Key departures: Pavel Datsyuk, which will likely hurt the Red Wings more than they think. Strengths: depth on offense and goaltending depth. If Mrazek is in goal, the strength: goaltending if Mrazek is in goal. Weakness: if Howard is in goal, goaltending may be a weakness. They don't have a pure scoring winger yet. Unless Mantha makes the team, then they have one. But if he doesn't make the team, they don't. They don't have a shutdown defensive pair. Key players for the Red Wings: Henrik Zetterberg, Dylan Larkin, Gustav Nyquist, Frans Nielsen, Mike Green, Peter Mrazek, and Justin Abdelkader. The X factor for the Detroit Red Wings is Dan DeKeyser. Can Dan DeKeyser prove that he's worth his contract that he just signed? If he can prove to be that top defenseman that he signed the contract for, the Detroit Red Wings will be in much better shape. Fifth place in the Atlantic Division would be the Ottawa Senators. Ottawa Senators are a team that are caught at a crossroads because they have a good team, but they aren't quite a playoff caliber team yet. On the same token, all of their best players are in their prime, so it would not make sense to rebuild. So the only thing you can do is add to the core talent. Last season, the Senators' biggest weakness was goaltending, and they didn't do anything to fix it. Trading Mika Zibanejad for Derek Brassard means that the Senators are trying to win now. Brassard is an improvement over Zibanejad at this point of his career. The Senators also brought back Chris Kelly, who will be a good role player for them. Senators didn't really improve much from last season, so you can expect similar results from last season. Key arrivals, Chris Kelly and Derek Brassard. Key departures, Mika Zibanejad. The strengths for the Senators: depth at defense. They have good forward depth, and they have balanced power plays. Weaknesses for the Senators: they lack a good second-line left winger, and their goaltending is a question mark, to say the least. Key players: Erik Karlsson, Bobby Ryan, Mike Hoffman, Kyle Turris, Derek Brassard, Dion Phaneuf, and Mark Stone. The X factor for the Senators is Craig Anderson. If Craig Anderson can prove to be just a solid starter in the NHL, then the Senators may be in a much better standing in the division. But if not, it may be a long season. Sixth place is the Boston Bruins. Not only did the Bruins not get better, the Bruins got much worse this offseason. The Bruins defense is just very weak. It's a good thing they have Tuukka Rask in goal to bail them out most nights. In free agency, the Bruins added David Backes and Riley Nash. Backes will likely play on the first line alongside Bergeron and Marchand. Riley Nash is likely going to be centering their third line alongside Matt Vasilevskiy and Jimmy Hayes. The Bruins better add a center before their season starts, because their fourth line center right now is Zach Rinaldo, and that's not someone you want centering your fourth line. They also should try to add another defenseman, because their defense right now is not going to cut it, and it's not going to make them a contending team. If the Bruins didn't have Tuukka Rask, they would be possibly the worst team in the division. Key arrivals: David Backes and Riley Nash. Key departures: Louis Eriksson, Brett Connolly. Strengths: they have an elite goaltender in Tuukka Rask. They have a great coach in Claude Julien, and they have good top six forwards. Their weakness is their defense lacks a good puck-moving defenseman on the top pair. Torrey Krug is a good puck-moving defenseman, but he's not a top pair defenseman. Hence the reason why he's always played on the second or third pair. The depth at center is absolutely horrendous. Key players: Tuukka Rask, Patrice Bergeron, David Krejci, Brad Marchand, David Backes, Ryan Spooner, David Pasternak, and Torrey Krug. The X factor is going to actually be the captain, Zdeno Chara. If Zdeno Chara can miraculously have a bounce-back season and have a throwback year, and to, let's say, 2011, then Zdeno Chara and the Boston Bruins may just squeak into the playoffs. But if that doesn't happen, the Bruins are not going to get anywhere near the playoffs. 7th place will be the Buffalo Sabres. The Sabres are a team that are improving, but there are still some noticeable holes in the lineup. Sabres addressed a few weaknesses this offseason by adding Kyle Okposo and Dmitry Kulikov. Both players will be very important players this year. Okposo fills a void at right wing for the Sabres and figures to be a major factor in the team moving forward. Kulikov is going to be getting more responsibility than he did with the Panthers because he is likely going to be starting on the first defense pair. The most noticeable weakness is in goal. Robin Lehner's durability right now is a question mark. So if he were to get injured, the Sabres may be in major trouble because they don't have Chad Johnson anymore. Key arrivals: Kyle Okposo, Dmitry Kulikov, and Anders Nilsson. Key departures: Chad Johnson. The strengths for the Sabres: depth at center. They have a very good, skilled top 6, and they have good forward depth. Weaknesses: they don't have a shutdown defenseman. And their goaltending is a question mark. Key players: Ryan O'Reilly, Jack Eichel, Kyle Okposo, Evander Kane, Rasmus Ristolainen, Tyler Ennis, and Sam Reinhart. The X factor is Robin Lehner. Without Robin Lehner, the Sabres could possibly end up as the worst team in the Eastern Conference. With Robin Lehner, they could end up making a run at the playoffs. 8th place will be the Toronto Maple Leafs, and they will likely be last place in the division. The Leafs most likely will not be a playoff caliber team this year. However, they are going to be much better than they were last year. They added a franchise center to their lineup in Austin Matthews, and he will bring a new dynamic to this team. Matthews isn't the only prospect that will play on the team this year. Mitch Marner, William Nylander, and Nikita Psysk will be key players to the Leafs, or for the Leafs this year. A big disappointment for the Leafs isn't actually on defense or on offense, but it was in goal because, or the biggest improvement for the Leafs wasn't actually on defense or in goal or offense. It wasn't in goal because they actually now have a true number 1 goalie in Frederik Andersen. Frederik Andersen will be their number 1 goalie, giving them a reliable number 1 goalie, something they have not had in a long time. Leafs also added Matt Martin and Roman Polak in free agency. They will be used as depth role players. Maple Leafs look much better on paper, but can they turn that into success on the ice? Only time will tell. Key arrivals: Austin Matthews, Mitch Marner, Matt Martin, Nikita Zaitsev, Frederik Andersen, and Roman Polak. Key departures: Jonathan Bernier. Strengths for the Leafs: top-end talent with star potential. Goaltending: good depth on offense. Weaknesses: no defense on top pair with no top-end defenseman to pair alongside Morgan Rielly, lack of defensive depth, and players are injury-prone. Key players for the Leafs: Austin Matthews, Nazem Kadri, JVR, Mitch Marner, Leo Komarov, Morgan Riley, Frederick Anderson, and Jake Gardner. The X factor is Tyler Bozak. Tyler Bozak is the X factor because right now he's penciled in as the number 3 center. If he can do a good job chipping in points here and there and draw a mismatch, chip in some points, the Leafs may do a lot better, a lot sooner than people think. So to repeat the final standings, or at least the predicted final standings for the Atlantic Division, here we go. I'll start in reverse order. In 8th place, we have the Toronto Maple Leafs. In 7th place, we have the Buffalo Sabres. 6th place, we have the Boston Bruins. 5th place, we have the Ottawa Senators. 4th place, we have the Detroit Red Wings. 3rd place, we have the Montreal Canadiens. 2nd place, we have the Florida Panthers. And in 1st place is the Tampa Bay Lightning. This is going to do it for the Atlantic Division preview in the NHL, and it will also wrap up this podcast. Next podcast, I'll be previewing the Central Division in the